Something wasn't right here. Was it the knife in your back? Hello! My name is Ella Jean, your local fantasy author, and welcome back to seeing what little Ella has cooked up today. The series where we go through my fantasy book I attempted to write at 14 years old. Apparently we're going through it one chapter at a time because I have a lot to say. So, will it be good? Will it be really bad? Will it be questionable? Stay tuned to find out. Hit the like button if you're willing. Subscribe if you want more. And let's see the horrors little Ella has enacted on us. So we are on chapter 5. And for some reason, Scarlet Smith has just accepted the whole magical thing in 2 days. And she's like wondering if she should accept magic. And she's like, I'm supposed to end the biblical apocalypse. I'm not even religious. Even worse, by ending it, I might condemn my world to destruction. What does she think of this horrible fate that she has only now learned about for 2 days? Something she has spent so much time processing. Fantastic. With a period, so it's clearly sarcastic, but your one answer to apocalyptic destruction is a sarcastic. Little Ella was trying very hard to be cool. She was trying very hard to be cool. I don't think she realized that being a fantasy writer, while lovely, wonderful, super fun, doesn't exactly make you cool, especially in high school. She's just casually not eaten anything since last morning. I can't appreciate the line that she's hearing voices outside her room, and she acknowledges they were muffled. But for once, I thanked the college for being cheap and putting in the thinnest walls possible before just installing paper. And like, yeah, that's fair. Little Ella hasn't gone to college yet, but Big Ella has, and that's... I'm sorry if you hear any crunching throughout this. My cat has decided to sit on top of the cat tree, which is right there, and chew her toes. Is that a comfortable position, lady? So we get the most basic explaining of some of the of Exophon and Baratil's motives. Baratil saying that being here is his punishment, Exophon whining about being bored, being a very ADHD person by saying when Baratil says you find things to interest you for a short while, then you discard them for the new interesting thing that comes around. That's how we've always been. And I'm like, yeah, fine. But then they're paper thin. I mean, little Ella has no thought to character motivation, which I think is where this book struggles the most. Things just happen. I've noticed that actually a lot in my work, I'm a lot better at plotting than I am with characters. This is a problem I still have to this day. I am drafting a new book, which you have only seen one episode of the drafting vlog because I want to bang my head against the wall instead of actually think about drafting it. I made a big character cast in this latest book. 16 students, all of that hoopla. And I've realized that I have to give motivations to each of these characters, and it sucks. They don't just fall in line with my plot. They kind of just do whatever they want. I find it's often that you're really good at, like, one of the basic things. It's like the whole idea that you're either a plotter or a pantser. You're either good at like plot or character, dialogue or action, and you obviously there are probably people who are great at both. But generally I find you end up being very good at one, and the other one is like a little demon in the corner hissing and spitting that you have to tame. Please say I'm not the only one who thinks of it like that. Maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe little Ella has grown up into just a slightly bigger, weird Ella. We get into some structure shit of like almost every sentence starts with I. Switch up sentence structure. However, big important thing, that's not important in a first draft. In a first draft, switching up sentence structure should be the least of your worries because it really just eats away at you, and then you question everything you write instead of just flowing through your first draft and writing. Because trust me, there will be plenty of problems in your first draft. There will be plenty of things, of roadblocks that you hit and you go, what the fuck am I even doing? Can I even finish this? Dicking around with sentence structure is the least of your worries. However, I don't know, it does mean when you read it 10 years later. 8 years later? Yeah, 8 years later. When you read something 8 years later, it is less good. And then there's moments like this that I find really cute. I heard movement behind me and just assumed that Baratil or Exafon were resuming their argument silently. I was wrong, as Exafon was suddenly next to me, staring at the small flame under the pan. She's cooking breakfast. He knelt down next to the flames, an odd, transfixed look coming across his face. His almost white eyes seemed to go even paler. His tail slowly twitched behind him. I stared at him, unsure what to do. Did I just hypnotize him or something? He closed his eyes, and his tail hung limp, slowing to a stop. Just as I was about to ask what was wrong, the small fire jumped into a pure white inferno, completely engulfing the pan and my eggs. I barely had time to pull my hand back to keep it from being burned off. I screamed, jumping back. Exafon, put it out! I screeched at him. As the fire died down, I tried to take some deep breaths to calm my racing pulse. I looked back at the stove. Half the stove, the pan, and my eggs were burnt to a crisp. My spatula melted in half and was dripping molten plastic onto the ground. My panic was quickly erased in a wave of anger. I didn't know you were scared of fire, Exafon said innocently. He still knelt on the ground, looking up at me. His tail twitched curiously, reminding me of a dog. I'm not scared of fire, I snapped at him, struggling to contain my anger. However, I am scared when my fire turns into an inferno. My anger boiled over, and I saw red. Come on, you wouldn't have been burnt that bad, he chided, like it was my fault for being scared of burning to death. I like that. I like that. I'm realizing this is really interesting to me. You see, the characters I mainly write now are younger. I write young adult. I usually do the stereotypical trope of stick them in a school so they start at 14. As it goes. And usually they are very nervous creatures. Even in my high fantasy, where Naya was really my main center, she was very secretive, but even then she didn't like going up and approaching these magical people. She didn't like engaging in that. She felt uncomfortable in her own skin. You have Margie from the book that I'm trying to publish right now, who deals with anxiety and self-deprecation of being unable to see value in herself and what she does. And in this latest book that I'm drafting, at least one of them, his name is Blair, also deals with some bad self-deprecation. And I think, fascinatingly, I don't necessarily know if Scarlett's written badly. She is incredibly strong and hard-headed and quick to anger and be sarcastic. And I keep picking at oh my god, imagine someone reacting like that to the apocalypse. However, that's been consistent with her character, and you can make any character quirk work as long as it's consistent, and as long as it isn't then applied to every other character. And I'm not sure she'd be the most likable MC, but shockingly, I think this is kind of just what little Ella was going for. It's fascinating. I only just now, in the book I'm drafting, it has two main characters. Blair is the one who deals with a lot of self-doubt and such like that. But Victoria is hard-headed. She likes solving things and doesn't always think about the consequences of the people around you's opinion on things. She'll just say things that are right, but she doesn't then take into the social situation of it. I debated making her autistic. I myself am possibly autistic because of my very black and white thinking. Because of other mental illnesses, I struggle to self-diagnose. I understand self-diagnosing is valid. I just struggle to consider myself autistic without a doctor saying so. Anyway. That was a long tangent that wasn't necessary. But to think that my first main character is the type of person that I am only just now, 8 years later, with 4 years of hardcore writing under my belt, willing to touch, is interesting. I feel bad for little Ella. Not for her lack of skill, because she's so questionable in writing. But I don't remember how I felt while I wrote this. I was in a very dark place in high school, and I can't really put on the timeline of if the writing of this was before or after that dark place started. However, I remember trying to go back to read this and crying so much about how bad it was. I was still in the naive phase of thinking that the first draft is obviously the longest thing you spend on in writing. After that, it should go super quick, right? Just a bit of editing. That is false for anyone who's curious. But I was still in that naive phase, so to have gone back and realized how poor quality it was really shook me. But reading these words right now, they're questionable. There are some parts that are just bad. The pacing of this book is a nightmare that I don't even know how to address. But I think little Ella was really proud of it. As she wrote. Not that moment after. I can see confidence in these ideas. They are strung together horribly, which is where the whole pacing and plot kind of falls apart. But the ideas in and of themselves, there have been tons that I loved in the previous videos, and even now, this thought of someone being so upset about him burning her breakfast and having Exophon being like, oh, I didn't know you're scared of fire, and having her justify that's not a fear of fire. It was written with confidence and pride, and I don't know, I hope I can offer that to any author out there trying to get their start, because you just gotta write. She's left the building and stormed away from Baratail and Exophon. There's a moment where she's walking through some trees, and in the most obvious way ever, they reminded me of the trees I used to climb as a kid. My mom always called me Squirrel because of how fast I could climb. It made me laugh. Hadn't climbed a tree in years. If I were to try now, I would probably fall and break my neck. I wish, instead of just zooming through that, she tried. Because that would be, this is one of those moments that's a great setup for later, so to have her try, to have her fall, and to later have climbing be something that saves her. Ooh, it may be a bit cheesy, but God, that payoff of that sort of thing is great. Instead, she just goes off on where her parents are, then remembering that she asked a guy for English notes yesterday, and now she has to go back to her dorm to get her phone. You can tell this is where the whole I did an outline comes and bites me in the ass. You can tell I had no idea where I was going, that I was trying to transition to some next scene, but I little Ella was floundering. So I wish each of these moments actually got a second to think. Instead, they all get a paragraph each of trees, wonder how parents were doing and should call them, ask the guy for notes, and missing my phone. You can tell this book is only 62,000 words. That's a decent amount, but a YA book usually hits around 80, a YA fantasy usually hits around 90, and then pure fantasies, and technically this would be a new adult to adult fantasy, depending on how I decided to mark it up, would technically could hit like 100,000. So we're missing so much, and you can feel it in moments like this. And now she's being followed. I remember this. I love this. I can't remember the payoff for this scene. Knowing little Ella, there may not have been any. However, I do want to see an attempt at action. Then I saw it. A figure was striding towards me, making dead eye contact. All thoughts of subtlety left, and I started running across campus. People jumped to get out of the way. Some seemed shocked, and others made rude gestures, but I didn't care. I ran faster than I ever thought possible, adrenaline coursing through me. Couldn't hear anyone behind me, but I wasn't taking any chances. I ran down a jumble of paths in an attempt to lose her, but accidentally lost my sense of direction in the process. Accidentally lost myself in the process would have sounded a lot better. Reading time. Circle time. I finally forced myself to stop. I was out of breath and wheezing. I needed to find my way back to my dorm. I needed to get to my phone. I was hunkered over against a wall, trying to gulp as much air as possible when I felt something cold against my throat. My body froze, but the cold metal bit into my throat, forcing me to stand up in order to keep it from biting into my neck. My guess is biting further into my neck? That's the first sentence to truly baffle me. My guess is I'm missing a word. Anyway, you're coming with me, a female voice ordered from behind me. I glanced back, hoped to catch a glimpse of my attacker so I could describe her to the police. I love Scarlet. And honestly, that line makes sense. Because she has known about magic for a total of 2 days, and while you go, oh, magic, obviously, because yes, it's magic, obviously, her not thinking of it being magic and immediately going police is great. And immediately regretted it. Her pointed ears poked out behind blonde braids, and her naturally bright green eyes reject in a way that she wasn't quite human. Stop staring at me and move. I think she's an elf or a fae. Ugh. I don't remember where this is going. She gestured for me to move forward, taking her knife from my neck and putting it between my shoulder blades, a constant reminder to cooperate. I was unsure where she was leading me, but anytime I tried to slow down to get my bearings, she twisted her knife into my back. Should describe something about pain, but I didn't. She led me to an off-campus park that I had never seen before. It was mostly overgrown with vegetation. In one corner, there was a rundown children's playground overshadowed by some oak trees. The energy seemed off here, like the park was slowly becoming reclaimed by the wild. Shocker, she's a nature spirit. Green, the pointy ears. Crazy Knife Girl! Great name. And I think I commit to it. No, I may just start calling her Knife Girl. Knife Girl. Crazy Knife Girl guided me to the center of the park, where a massive oak tree stood. Tried to look up and see the top, but all I saw was branches. Even though it was a tree, it felt unnatural, like someone was watching me. Or a lot of someone's. Trying for something cool. Being more descriptive. Like eyes were on me, or a lot of eyes. The specificity is the spice of life. She led me closer to the tree, but I struggled against her, all my instincts pushing me to run. Something wasn't right here. Was it the knife in your back? I felt the tip of her knife cut into my back, and winced in pain. I felt the back of my shirt become sticky with blood. Don't need I felt here. Don't need I felt here. Don't need I felt here. It didn't seem like too bad of a wound, but I knew it could quickly become much worse. I slowly started walking forward, trying to think of a plan. Now would be the time where others would run or try to fight back, but I couldn't get my body to cooperate. My mind was blank with fear. I like that. I was ready to accept my fate at the hands of Knife Girl when her knife disappeared from my back. Stay away from her, a familiar voice cried. Why do you care, demon? She snapped. I turned around and was greeted to the sight of Knife Girl and Exafon circling each other. She now had 2 knives in her hands. Double Knife Girl! And Exafon had a flaming spear with orange sparks of energy flying off of it, singeing the surrounding grass and fields. Gotta say, these next 2 lines make my favorite thing ever. This describes Exafon and Baratil's thoughts on her so well. Because I'm supposed to protect her. Can't have the girl dying before she plays her part, and necromancy is such an inconvenience, Exafon complained. Not to mention necromancy is chaotic magic and would force her to obey you, which would make it nearly impossible for me to do my job. Baratil chimed in. They still hate her. Consistency. I like that. I glanced over to him. Where is he? No idea. He's just here. His wings were open to the largest extent. Some more description of what that means would be nice. And he had a weapon in each hand. Both weapons had 2 blades on each side and were glowing white. Simplify. My mistress has asked me to bring her in to understand her risk, Knife Girl explained, so she must come to me. Yes, because you elves, she is an elf, I guess right. Why am I doing elves, not fae? Context, elves seem like so high fantasy. Usually elves are only seen in high fantasy. To have elves here and not like the fae, which is pretty common to see in fantasy anymore. It is just a wild choice. Yes, because you elves are perfect little puppets, willing to do anything your dear mistress ordered, Exafon mocked, pouting at her. Knife Girl lunged at him, her blades flashing a bright green, but Exafon raised his spear in time to meet her blow. He pushed her back, smiling widely. This is going to be fun, Exafon gasped, his spear sparking up as he charged her. She blocked him, and green and orange sparks flew everywhere. He pushed her back and jabbed his spear in her face. He dodged out of the way before countering with a flash to his face as he passed her. Exafon's cheek split open, thick black spilling out. He raised his hand to his face, touching the wound. His eyes seemed to fill with rage, but he just took a deep breath. He dropped his spear and the fire drained out of it, leaving behind an intricately carved wooden spear. All of this is actually rather serviceable. I'm not great at writing action. It just needs to be condensed. We don't need to know he dropped his spear and it left behind a spear. Baratil stepped in front of me just as Exafon's entire body caught on fire. His actual body became obscured by the flames. All I could see was a dark silhouette in the middle of the flames. Oh my god! Flames and flames. Use synonyms if you need. Though sometimes those can end up being really awkward. Just condense. The grass under his feet caught fire and heat began radiating off of him. The air was scorched hot, making me pant. I even saw Baratil break out into a sweat. But Exafon didn't seem to mind. In fact, he looked calm. He strode towards Knife Girl, burning a path into the ground. She flicked back, panting in the heat. Do you want me to burn this grove to the ground? He threatened. If I had taken out ground earlier, that would sound a lot. You wouldn't. You would face the wrath of all fae. This grove is sacred, she said, trying to stay strong. But she didn't seem so sure of herself. He's crazy enough to do it, Baratil said. Love the idea of Baratil in the corner going, I hate this man, but we need to protect this damn girl that I hate. He's crazy enough to do it! Great. Also, apparently elves are part of the fae. Fair enough. So, fair enough. For terrifying, I know what I did. I backed myself into a corner. Little Ella backed herself into a corner. Most fae, like fae, are portrayed with wings. And little Ella thought that fae girl would have snatched Scarlet up way easier and way quicker and moved her way quicker had she had wings, and this scene may not have been possible. So she went with an elf who's wingless. That's a way to think about it. For a terrifying moment, it seemed Knife Girl was going to attack the Exafon again, but then she huffs and her knife is aloft as a green glow. She strode past Exafon and made a direct beeline for me. Thought she was just gonna kill me outright, but Beartail extended his glowing blade in front of me and pushed me out of the way. She walked right by us, glaring at me, before literally disappearing into the giant oak tree. Serviceable. For a first draft, none of that is actually too bad. God, am I backing myself into a corner that I'm going to rewrite my high school fantasy book? Hey, does anyone want me to rewrite my high school fantasy book completely? In another great moment, Beartail is because Scarlett's like, what the fuck was that? And I actually really like this idea. Because Beartail's like, well, some half-beings aren't happy that the apocalypse is coming to an end soon, and want to, he paused as if looking for the correct word, postpone it for as long as possible. They want you dead, Exafon supplied. Yeah, I kind of got that, I said. Oh my god, I'm falling in love with these characters. This is... And now, Scarlett's going to see her friend, Ethan. He's frustrated with her because, she just disappeared on him. Of course, we have the line of, I was just about to call campus police, because you can't get the police involved, because that makes the story much more complicated, but you also want to show that the person cares about him. That's just a trope. That's just a thing. That's not even a bad little Ella, that's just a thing. And then she lies to him about magic, and says that she lost her phone and spent a lot yesterday retracing steps. And we get a good moment of explaining Scarlett's character through someone else when one of her best friends says, that is something that can only happen to you, isn't it? Which is then turns into irony when you look at that this random girl is deciding the apocalypse. Then we get some actually cute character stuff. Oh my god, I'm falling in love with this book. Here you go, he said, finally pulling a sheet out of the pot. So she, literally goes through his freezer and grabs ice cream. Another great character moment to show that how close they are is she can go through his shit and take it without having to force him to say, the Sukasa my house, make yourself at home. Any of the things that wouldn't be said this late in a friendship with no one else around to see and is only said for the sake of our audience. Instead, we see her literally do what they always say, help yourself to anything, all that. She literally helps herself to his ice cream. And he sits her down and is like, here you go. Finally pulling out a sheet pile. You can just copy it down and get this back to me later. And feel free to help yourself to my ice cream. I don't mind, he said sarcastically. I just smiled sweetly, the chocolate around my mouth making it all the better. And then later it's like, and ice cream was the only thing you had, I complained. There were apples, he argued. Yeah, but only crazy people eat apples for breakfast, I told him. I eat apples for breakfast, he protested. My point still stands, I said, sticking my tongue out at him. We are 27 pages into this book. And I think I really like it. There's something nostalgic about it, and rereading it, the reason I've never actually reread it to rewrite it is because I was always like, oh, it's Good Omens, it's exactly like Good Omens, it's exactly like Good Omens. Kinda, there's angels and demons trying to do something with the apocalypse, but these characters are actually very different. And my angel and demon are gay for each other. But I don't know, when I inevitably finish reading it as we get, how many goddamn chapters are there? As we get a lovely 33 more parts to this series if we're going the rate I'm going. I think afterwards there may need to be a series of rewriting. I was so worried it was gonna be bad. I don't know. I'm actually gonna benefit from it being bad. I thought it was going to be funny to go over such a bad book. And it's questionable. It's definitely written by a beginning writer. Even now, if you go back and look at my first drafts. Here's the intro to my first draft of the book I'm drafting now. It was only on the 6-hour flight, served Coke in a wine glass, 2 hours from landing in the middle of Maine, that Victoria really considered how unlikely this plan had been. She had spoken of going to Blackstone Academy since her kindergarten teacher told them of the story of Anton Gladwell. Blackstone Academy made him who he was, lifting a wonderful artist from poverty and giving him the business know-how to actually make it in a capitalist world. He credited it all to Blackstone, the mysterious academy buried in the woods of Maine, who covered his education and supplies and time. It was the mystery that intrigued Victoria. A school that kept their students named off any lists until they have graduated. But each graduate was set for life. There were rumors the students who didn't make it to graduation were executed. Victoria didn't actually believe in that side of things. All she knew, as a shiny 5-year-old, was that Blackstone Academy was her dream high school. I want to make it very clear, that's not a perfect intro. I think it's actually rather wordy, and we don't get a lot of Victoria's emotions about it, and all she knew as a shiny 5-year-old was that Blackstone Academy was her dream high school, I think is so far removed from that original paragraph about her kindergarten teacher that it almost sounds like she's still 5 years old. All of that will likely be changed in next drafts. But it's got more character, it's got more depth and specificity. But at the same time, I really think there's something I can do with this draft. So I guess follow along for more. I'll keep reading through it. I'll try to either speed it up or make longer episodes. But I like the filming aspect of things. Regardless, writing is difficult, and daring to continue past the first page is brave, especially the way the world is right now. I want to build community with you, because I truly believe anyone can write, and everyone has a story in them. Thanks.